I'm gonna spill it everywhere, that's all I got.
Why?
In this episode, we are sharing what we've learned about painting a boat using a roll and tip method. We'll teach you how to prep, when to paint, and the best tools for the job. 18 months ago, we purchased a hurricane-damaged sailboat with the dream of sailing her around the world. Since then, we've been refitting her and are almost ready to get back in the water.
Do we have PDA on the camera? No PDA allowed.
Thank you to our newest patrons.
Jim McDonald!
Tom VC.
Okay, we promised you when we started painting that we were going to share our tips with you.
Tips and tricks for rolling and tipping.
Unfortunately, we've got this busy road right behind us, so we apologize for the road
And
noise.
it is Friday, and I don't know, everybody wants to put their boat in the water.
Maybe we need to go find another place. Okay, maybe that'll be a little better. We don't know.
Active boat yards, you
Yeah.
just never know. We wanted to go over these tips and tricks to see if they will help you make your boat a work of art. Point number one.
Point number one, prep is everything.
Okay, the preparation is important because if the surface underneath is not in good shape, your product won't stick properly and it won't look right. That's just the fact.
Right. We used 80, 120, 180, and 220.
That is sandpaper, for those of you who don't know what numbers mean. Yes.
Next, you have to wipe it down, and Todd recommends using a tack cloth before you wipe it down with a clean rag.
So a tack cloth is a neat little device that was created by painters that picks up lint, dirt, dust, all kinds of stuff. Wipe it down with a tack cloth first, it'll get the bulk of that crap off, and then we recommend wiping it down with whatever the manufacturer of the paint you're going to apply recommends, whether that's acetone, whether that's alcohol, whether that's their own product. Put that on a cloth and wipe it down with that.
Okay, after you've wiped it down, it's really important that you don't touch it with your bare hands.
And don't, wherever you're touching it with your arm like you just were, you got to do it again. Where you had your arm laying on it, you got to wipe it again because the oils on your arm are now stuck on the boat. They will not, the paint won't stick to those oils.
Tape properly. So what does it look like to tape properly?
Do as ugly a job as possible. You got to tape around anything that you don't want to have the paint on. That's the first thing. So if it's something that you are likely to get paint on, make sure it is taped off. Any lines that you want to have, such as your water line or any other lines that are on the boat that will be painted, tape those off too, so that they have a nice crisp, sharp area when you peel that tape off.
And then you have to take the tape off after you're done painting.
Look at the manufacturer's recommendations. Our paint recommended not sooner than 1 hour. You know, if it gets wet from dew and then the sun hits it, it can bake it on. So if you leave it on for a couple weeks, you might have a mess.
Okay, stop. Number two, paint and tools.
Paint and tools.
Use paint that says it's good for rolling and tipping. Ask around. Some paint just doesn't work to roll and tip. It says you can, but really they prefer that you spray it. The Total Boat, one of the reasons we chose it was it is designed to roll and tip.
Right. So we specifically chose this because we knew we were going to roll and tip.
And that was, for us, a price point.
How do you like rolling and tipping, dear?
It's okay. It's kind of hard on my back. And my elbow's sore. So contact the manufacturer directly with any questions about what kind of thinner, about what kind of brushes. They will answer your questions. They want you to have a good experience with their paint.
One of our challenges early on when we first bought our paint, we didn't look at the thinning process. Everything requires thinning and almost all of them require something special. Usually it requires something the manufacturer has designed specifically for their paint. So you will need to purchase that along with your paint in order to do it.
So Then the tools to do it are also important. When we did the hatches, we did not have the rollers that we need, and we found that they just disintegrated from the paint.
Yeah, you can't generally go buy a foam roller from Home Depot, even if it says that it is good for oil-based paints, lacquers, and urethanes. They generally come apart with the solvents in boat paint. And so you have to have a foam roller that is designed specifically for the boat paints.
Yep. And then we asked Total Boat what kind of brush to use, and they recommended the Corona brushes.
The 3-inch worked really well.
I don't know how many badgers died to make this brush.
Todd.
What?
Okay, so number 3, and this is where we really started hitting a wall. Choose the time of year and day that you paint. Right here, we've got a lot of water beating up.
It's so humid. We just can't paint right now. We gotta wait.
We're still at, well, we're down to 87%. We technically could paint right now, but
we want to get some paint on before the sun comes out and starts heating everything up.
yeah, unfortunately,
We didn't get all of our ducks in a row to get the boat painted during the time of year that we should have done it. So Total Boat is really good because it really has the widest range that we've seen out there. You can paint up to 90% humidity and you can paint up to 90 degrees. Now, just because you can doesn't mean you should, and that's really what we bumped into. We are racing against time today. This is going to be a hot one. We were supposed to have a good window for painting our final coat on this boat tomorrow, but the weather has changed on us, and today looks like the best day that we're going to have for a while, and it's getting hot. Right now, we can't paint this side of the boat because it's over 90 degrees. And the other side is 85 degrees and still in the shade. The challenge is we get over here and it's humid, too humid. The humidity starts dropping, but the heat starts rising. Let's keep our fingers crossed that it looks okay.
yeah, we ended up painting our final coat on the boat at the high end of that spectrum. Well, high end of the temperature spectrum, humidity was only about 65%. That was actually really good.
But the wind was also blowing.
Yeah.
The reality is heat, humidity, and wind are not your friend when it comes to painting your boat.
Wind is never your friend when painting a boat.
The first couple of coats that we did, we were in the 75 to 80 degree range in terms of temperature and had very little humidity and very little wind, and the paint laid down beautifully. It was amazing. So number 4, tips for actually doing the paint. If you can have scaffold running around your whole boat, it works great. This is what one of our neighbors in the boatyard did, and it allows you to not have to stop and move the scaffold.
Yeah, stopping and moving a scaffold, the warmer the day is, the more critical it is to not stop. You know, not have that brief pause of getting down and moving a scaffolding out of the, down the row. So
yeah, as we had to stop and move the scaffold, a hard line starts to happen in your paint, and you just can't have that. One of the things about tipping and rolling is you just got to keep moving. You've got to keep moving. So keep the paint thin by adding thinner as you go.
So as you paint and roll the roller in the paint in the tray, you will cause the thinner to evaporate, and the paint will get thicker and thicker as you're going along. So you need to kind of monitor that and watch that as you're moving along. If you need to add some thinner, it's real easy with the brush in a special its own container with some thinner in it to do the tipping part, to just take the brush out and just flick a little bit of paint in there, quickly stir it up with a stick, and it's done, and you can just keep right on moving. But you'll kind of get a feel for what is too thick and what is not.
And that was something that Total Boat told us when we talked to them. They were like,
that was a great tip.
It was a great tip to have a container to dip the brush in as we were going along, because the brush also starts to get a little gummy, and so you're gonna kind of rinse that off and then wipe it on a rag and keep going. If when you're brushing, when you're tipping, you start to feel it getting sticky on there, they said that's a sign that your paint needs some more thinner. The tipper is really the one that can tell that it's getting too thick. So Katie found that the direction for tipping, as the days got warmer, it really mattered, and she found that going from the wet to the dry instead of going from dry to wet worked better, because if she set her brush in the drier paint and moved to the wet, it caused more of a mark than if she went from the wet to the dry. We also tried one of the tips that we found on Boatworks today about actually tipping both directions, and that was a disaster. And unfortunately, we tried that on our last coat, and that is one of the challenges that we have with it, is that we've got marks in both directions, and that happened because the paint was drying so fast. He paints in a controlled environment, and we were not in a controlled environment at all.
No, if you're outdoors, it ain't controlled.
Finally, you need to plan a stopping point ahead of time.
Okay, planning a stopping point. You don't want to stop in the middle of the field of the boat. If you think you're going to go to lunch or go to the bathroom in the middle of the field, you're going to come back and there's going to be a hard line that's going to be really bad. So we recommend the corners. Go up where the bow is, up in the front of the boat. There's usually some sort of an edge that you can use. Use that as a starting point. Work your way down the side of the boat. As you get toward the back of the boat where it starts to go around the stern, oftentimes there is a more hard edge. Pick that as a stopping point. It's really easy to start and stop from then, because the hard line that ends up developing is not really noticeable. Okay?
Right? And one of the things that we discovered is really, really important that we had at least 3 people helping us do this. You need somebody that's tipping and one that's rolling, and somebody else that's running all the errands, mixing the paint so that you don't have to stop. We actually ran into a problem on the last day. I was so hot that I started to feel faint. Oh my freaking heck. It is so hot out here, and I look like a Smurf. My hands. But it's just too hot to wear gloves. I am just shaking. I think I got a little bit of too hot. And if we had not had a third person to jump in and take over the rolling, that would have been a real problem. So the biggest thing that you have to remember is that it's just paint. Well, darn it, it's not perfect.
It's not perfect, huh? Well, it's 40 years old.
Oh, I think it's just gonna have to be good enough. I'm too tired to do this again.
Yep, good enough.
Shoot.
It is just paint, and what do you want to do with your life? You want to spend your entire life fawning over the side of your boat, beautiful everything, perfect showroom condition, or do you want to sail? You know?
Right. For us, we looked at the problems that are going on in our boat because of that last day that was so hot, and I was really disappointed. I shed a lot of tears because I didn't want to do it again. And most people walk up to the boat and are like, what's the problem? We can't even see what's wrong. The reality is you have to get about 3 feet away from the boat and look at it in the light going the right angle to see what the problem is, and I think that we can live with that. Our goal was to do this as inexpensively as we could, do it the best way so that it'll last, but to go out and get using this boat.
We also wanted something that we could touch up easily, because we knew that there are going to be scratches that happen. You're going to scrape a post coming into a dock sometime somewhere. Somebody else is going to bump into you or whatever. I can't set up a spray booth everywhere I am, but I can sit on the side of a dinghy and I can touch up an area really easy and really fast, and then move on and not have to worry about it if I want to. And that's really the reason why we chose to use this product and to roll and tip it.
Yep.
And like Tammy said, the further away you go, the better it looks. So frankly, if you can see the crosshatch marks in our boat, you're anchored too close.
Yep. Ouch!
Sorry, was that your hand?
Yes!
My goodness.